we realized that for human beings, there's almost always emotion going on when you touch something. That emotion and affect, which is another way of referring to emotion, it permeates how you interpret what you feel. And if you try and design or understand human touch without the lens of emotion, you'll be missing a lot. And so we really got focused on this platform of using a robot model to simulate human-animal interaction and then trying to use that to study emotional touch. So in Spin Lab, we study human-robot interaction, which is related to human-computer interaction, but in particular, we're interested in how people interact with robots. The special approach that we take in Spin Lab is that we look at the touch part of the interaction. So unlike most people who are doing HRI or human-robot interaction, we're interested in what goes on when you physically touch a robot and how the robot should respond to that kind of interaction.
So as you move your hand, you get the visualization showing.
We're particularly interested in something we call affective robotics or affective HRI, which means we're looking not just at functional interactions, but also emotional interactions and how you would actually convey and understand emotion through these kinds of touches of a robot.
There's also a haptic actuator, which creates a sensation of heartbeat. So if you touch the robot, you'll be able to feel its heartbeat. And the breathing is the movement of this ribcage.
There's a lot of reasons why we might want to study physical human-robot interaction and affective HRI. One is because we're curious about it. We just want to know how it works. If you try and study physical touch in human beings, human to human, or even in human to animals, it's actually really hard to study. You can't get inside the other human or the animal, like if you're studying how people interact with a dog or a cat. You can't get inside their brain. And you also can't control them very well. And if you ever tried to train a cat, it doesn't really do what you tell it to. Whereas if we use a robot to take the role of the living being, we can control it and we can break the problem down and try and figure out actually what's going on. Another reason is because there actually is a purpose for building robots that can be what we call emotionally sensitive machines, and trying to understand how that should work and is there a place in society for such machines.
So there's different types of gestures we'd assume you perform on a robot. Like one of them could be like pinching them, one of them could be like patting them or like rubbing their head or something like that. There's specifically validated social gestures that we try to have the machine learning algorithm detect. And we've gone through many iterations of this sensor. You can see like the graveyard of just sensors throughout. And these are all different kind of like prototypes and iterations and things like that.
A lot of times we're working in a lab in relatively controlled situations, and we have to make a judgment call about how well these simulated and sometimes contrived situations resemble what people would do in natural environments in their own world. And so the problem if you actually do the research out in the wild is that you can't control conditions, and a lot of times you don't really know what's going on. And so this balance between controlled lab studies and uncontrolled in the wild studies, we try and do both. So I look at it in a controlled, very contrived way, and then I try and look at the same problem from a very uncontrolled way and see if I get consistent results in each case. And if I do, then this gives me greater confidence that what I'm looking at is real.
Currently, my toolkit is quite diverse. I do a variety of things. As you can see, like I have these electronic circuit that is built up here. So we built a bunch of these electronic circuits to either sense participants' state during the studies that we run, or to design robots like this and to provide them a brain in a way that they can sense and process the signals that we are using. And then I also do a lot of coding. So as you can see, I have some sort of a data analysis pipeline once we run a study. We also do some sort of interfacing with the devices that we developed. So getting the data from those sensors and sending codes to the actuators for them to move. So it's kind of like a different kind of suite of tools that we used all together. I also read a bunch of papers, so a part of my job involves like reading literature from different fields, not only related to computer science, but also psychology and design.
But I would say that what has attracted me to the area of haptics and haptics applied to human-computer interaction from the very start was that it was so multidisciplinary. I am not a person who likes to choose. I'd like to have my cake and eat it too. I want to do a little bit of everything. What I love about what we do here in the lab is that there's a lot of technical aspects to it. There's some very, very hard technical problems relating all the way from building and engineering physical things to machine learning and understanding, making models of human behavior and using those in our responsive models. There's serious computational challenges that go on, but also we have to do psychology, and we have to understand psychology models and then try and bring those back to what we're doing here. And it's very creative. We have to come up with really crazy ideas for how to solve some of these problems.
I come from a psychology, neuroscience, design background, and I'm in a lab that is under computer science, but we have quite a few engineering projects going on, and I was by no means an engineer expert or anything like that. We have lovely students like Barakat who come from the engineering physics background to like disseminate a lot of that knowledge to me. But even though I didn't come with that background, and even when I was doing research in my undergrad, I didn't necessarily have the skills, I learned.
There's always a lot of things to do, and if you're just trying to do it all alone, it becomes unmanageable. So you have to work as a team. You have to, you can't, like research is not done alone.
So one thing that people are often confused about, and I think they're confused about it in regarding science as a factual discipline, is something that we are trying to nail down a reality, and there's one truth to it. And they imagine that there's no subjectivity in science. There's always some subjectivity in our perspective as scientists. The questions we choose to go after, the conditions under which we examine them, are all going to influence the results that we find. My perspective adds, the particular background that I have, the particular problems I choose to work on, the collaborators I choose to work with are all influencing the approach I take, and they're going to influence the kinds of things that I find. It's really important to understand that this element of subjectivity is part of everything we do, and the fact that we're often blind to it is perhaps the most dangerous thing you can do. You really have to search out the subjectivity, find it, and name it, and acknowledge it so that you can actually manage the effects of that subjectivity.
When I started my undergrad, I was convinced that I wanted to do zero research because my conception was that research was for people who were interested in yucky theory, and that industry was for people that were interested in getting stuff done. Throughout the course of my undergrad, I did several internships as a software developer, and what I found was that while nominally, yes, I was helping with some very big, very fancy projects, I felt like I was very constrained in exactly what my role was, because that was the most efficient way to do things. Research is actually a place where you can sort of take all the quirky things that make you you and manifest them in your work. I'm really liking judo, and I have some conception that, like, you know, maybe it has something to do with haptics, and maybe there's some sort of cool project or cool research question that could be asked that ties those two things together.
Get inspired by working with people in all different domains. We work with videographers and musicians and artists and people in the medical fields and doctors and physicians who are working with patients that might be able to benefit from our technology. So it's incredibly multidisciplinary, and I never get bored.